Hey everyone, it's me and Isaac. We are just here to introduce this week's guest, which is one of my good friends, Derek. Derek and I have known each other for a very long time. I met him when I was extremely young, and he and I now we talk all the time. We're very good friends. We play video games together and everything. But I just thought he would be the perfect person to have on to talk about King Beetle. It's by the band Me Without You, which is the same band that did the 10 Stories poems, which is the Hang the Elephant one. You know that one, right, buddy? Yep. Cool. So you guys are already kind of familiar with their work. Hopefully you got a chance to read it and watch the lyric video so that you know exactly what happened or what went on in it. And he's got a microphone.
Hi.
Awesome. Anyway, Derek and I bought that album when it came out. We've seen Me Without You live several times, and he even has a tattoo that depicts kind of what happens in the song as a sleeve on his left arm or his right arm. Yeah, he's the perfect person to have around. So I will stop talking, and here in just a moment, I'll be right back with Derek. You have anything you want to say?
Yay.
Nice. Fantastic. All right. See you guys. You want to say bye?
Bye.
All right. Hey, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. This is my friend, Derek. Derek and I have known each other since I was roughly in diapers, I think, give or take a few years. So we go a long way back. And when I was thinking of this week's reading, Derek was the obvious choice to bring in for a lot of reasons, but this is a song that both of us have liked for a long while since it came out in 2010ish, I think, that we both really liked. Derek liked it maybe a bit more than I did and got a tattoo of it. So there it is right there. So he seemed like the perfect expert to bring in. So let me get it pulled up here real quick. Derek, anything you want to say to my students you've never met?
Hi guys, I've never met you. I guess we're virtually meeting now.
That was profound. Thank you so much. All right, so here's King Beetle on the Coconut Estate. Hopefully you enjoyed reading it a bit. I'm sure a lot of you were like, what the heck is this? Because you're reading about a beetle on what is a coconut estate. And it does have a couple of tricky words in it that I tried to define for you. But it seemed like a good challenge and a great way to kind of introduce symbolism, and it's a good cover of theme, and it's got characters, it's got everything you want. So Derek, when you think of King Beetle, what is there's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Well, I'm biased, but it's definitely philosophy. Like a little bit of theology, like what is God, what is that kind of entity, but also the philosophical side of it, because that's the progression that we see in the song, is that great question, what is the great mystery, and seeking to figure that out, which is very much a philosophical endeavor.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Derek says he's biased because he studied philosophy and theology, right? Is the master
Correct.
in philosophy, and then theology is the...
And my bachelor's is in theology, yes.
Yeah, so theology being the study of religion, and then philosophy being the study of...
philosophy.
There it is. Yeah, it's all about kind of how people have thought over the...
Yeah. So it's thought, it's ethics. Ethics was kind of my specialty. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that falls under philosophy. It's a wide range of things. What's out there? What's it like?
It's a very hard thing because it is so all-encompassing. It's a very hard thing to really define, but the song is a really great focused example of it, because it focuses on these beings, these beetles, asking this question that they don't understand, right? And so then what's the process of them trying to figure it out? We know, if you've read it and you look at, the clues about what the great mystery is, even just the first verb being lit, we know right away that the great mystery is fire, right? That there's been a fire that's been lit, and they're burning off all the extra or the excess dead leaves from their coconut estate. the Beatles don't know what fire is. They just know that every so often this great mystery lights up, and they try to track down kind of what it is. We meet 3 Beatles, so we know that one is the King Beatle, and then we meet the Professor here, and then we meet the military Beetle here. So we know that there are those 3 Beatles that we can kind of learn from. Now might be a good time to talk symbolism.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of important. These Beatles don't just represent Beatles, right? But what might these Beatles actually stand for?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, the King Beetle is, I mean, he's an interesting character because, he's asking the question, but at the end of the song, like he takes a different form by the end of the song.
Right.
So he is that seeker. He is the seeker of not just information, because we learn that from the lieutenant, but of true understanding. He wants to not know what it's like, but to know what it is. That's the line from the song. So we have the Professor, and what's interesting is, when we look at that part of the song, he kind of represents that knowledge, but it's objective knowledge. So it's, think of like a science nerd who goes and he says, okay, well, it was this hot, it gives you all the data, the actual real measurable information. So when you look at that part of the song, he says, it's no mystery to me. I'll be back successful and proud. But when he comes back, he's burned, right? And he has all the details of that scientific information that he recorded while being burned. Which is quite heroic as far as a pursuit that he's willing to sacrifice, and he ends up burning his own wings off. But the king's still unhappy with that answer because he doesn't say what it is. He just gives them measurable information.
We know the traits of fire too, being that it is bright and that it's hot. And I like that last line in that stanza, that there's neither a light nor a heat in his words. So they're not looking for understanding the data as much as they want to know it foundationally what it is. And when he comes back to share everything he's learned, the 2 fundamental things that fire has that they understand about it aren't present. Right. And so he is disappointed by that.
And I think that line, there is neither a light nor a heat in his words, is more about not just the observable, we see light, we know it generates us light, and we know it gives us heat, but also the poetic sense of it. There is neither a light or a heat in his words, because that's important, those last 3 words, in his words, like meaning there was no warmth. It was all cold, hard facts. That's all he presented. He wasn't passionate about fire. He didn't care what it was. It didn't change him in any other way other than it physically burned his wings. So he wasn't changed by it in a bigger sense, a philosophical or a deeper meaning sense.
And as you think of something like any great mystery that you would have, you want to understand more than just one focus of it, right? So you're looking to really understand every aspect of this, especially for them that they see so frequently, that is so predominant. I mean, obviously a giant fire is something you notice. And if there's this great thing that you see and notice, to understand the figures of it is one thing, but to really feel it and experience it is another.
Right. So you would think that perhaps if you were this lieutenant Beetle who steps out and you saw, the Professor's response and then the King's dissatisfaction with it, so then maybe you think that what he is looking for are the kind of things where he talks about what it was like, as far as, where it says it cracked like the thunder, blood shot my eyes. So even though it was smothered with sticks, it advanced undeterred. And then, so he's telling all these, but this is the light and the heat that we kind of think it's a more poetic response.
Right.
He's definitely talking about, these painting these pictures of what it was like in there. But again, that's it's a difficult difference, distinction between what something's like and what something is. I think of like the common phrase of, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, then it's a duck. So, but then what is that? What is it? The true essence of a duck? And I don't know, maybe that's a totally different question. And that's the philosophy side of it, is when you say, okay, a duck is something that waddles when it walks and it quacks. But what is it to be a duck? That's that's a different kind of question, philosophically, I guess. And that's more what this is. What the king beetle wants is more than descriptions. He wants to know what it is, not just what it's like. And both these beetles, the professor and the lieutenant, have told him, what it's like. The professor comes back saying how hot it is, and it burned his wings off. So he has the data. The lieutenant comes back and he has this heroic, even poetic story of what he encountered, what he witnessed, and he can paint the picture of his experience, but it's still not a definition of or a revelation of what it actually is, what fire is.
And then as the king gets angry because he's not getting out of this what he wants, he launches into his farewell speech of sorts, right? His big monologue, where his hour has drawn nigh, which means his time has come. And this whole back page is about the king going to solve his mystery, right? And as a character, what jumps out to you thinking of the Beetle King and what he's about to do and what he's going to do? What really stands out to you about his character and what he is about in this section?
Is that to me again?
Yeah,
all of us.
All of us, but yeah, you're the only one
But I'm the one here, right?
Exactly.
So he's an interesting, character when you look at, because his dissatisfaction with what's been explained to him so far. But this farewell speech, as you said, is powerful. It's moving. The way the music behind these lyrics as well, really ramps up here.
Right.
And so there's clearly, that passion all of a sudden that boils over. So he goes through this whole spiel, but there is this transformation inside the king himself. So he knows that it's going to cost him. He's going to have to invest in this search himself, and it changes him. I mean, completely. And so it's really interesting, and it's I think we're all supposed to identify with and as the king beetle. But we also, at different times in our lives, will identify with the other two, the professor and the lieutenant beetle. And so the question is, I feel like the song is asking you, the listener, which one are you? Which one do you want to be? Which one are you seeking to be? Are you going to be the professor who just wants cold hard facts? Are you going to be the lieutenant who, tells very elaborate stories and descriptions, but doesn't change themselves in any way, and doesn't provide true understanding of what you're describing? Or are you going to be like the king beetle and seek for yourself and be changed by what you find? And I think that's what you see here. So he talks about, basically relinquishing his throne. So he's going to take his scepter, his crown, and his throne, and he's going to distribute that wealth to the poor and alone. And it says, without further hesitation, without looking back home, he flew headlong into the blazing unknown. And that's just, it's a beautiful description of life, really, because he talks about how above that, where he talks about how you've been somewhat deceived, that line up there, the father explained, you've been somewhat deceived. You've all called me your dad, but your true dad's not me. And lay next to your mom and your forms were conceived. Your father's the light within all that you see. So that's super important. Your father's the light within all that you see. So must each of you and your father become. So one, so the flower and its fragrance are one. So must each of you and your father become. So we have to become one with this true father. And so that's the light within all that you see. So you have to become. So this is a really interesting thing, because this is where the theology and the philosophy side of it come in, because it's not obviously fire in this song is symbolic. But the cool thing about any form of poetry is it's open to your own lens, right? What your life brings to this poem, this song, that's going to define it. That's what's going to change it. So, what you hear and what you read sometimes is going to be different depending on who's listening to it. And that's the beauty of literature and poetry, especially. So I know, from the theological and the philosophical philosophical side, this is big time. This is like, you're talking about pantheism, possibly, the light within all that you see. So it's that kind of deity that's in everything. So that's a very pantheistic kind of definition, which is, that's at the root of all kinds of like ancient African, Native American religions, paganism back in like Western Europe in the Stone Age, even going way, all the way back. So these are, ancient religious views, but then there's also all kinds of modern Sikhism, Christianity. There are branches within each of these that also have these same kind of views. And so it's an interesting way of writing the song to be so inclusive. And sometimes, that's what a vagueness can include, but it's what you bring to it. So what you hear, what you choose to see, what that father, quote unquote, is to you is unique, possibly.
Well, and by setting it up as by not just saying exactly what you're thinking, but by setting it up as characters, even that aren't people, right? So there is this vagueness because they are just Beatles and they're dealing with something that we understand, but they don't. So while you read it, you have characters that you're watching make decisions, or as you listen to it, because the option to read it was accompanied by a lyric video. So hopefully everyone's listened to it as well. But as you interpret it, because it's about something that is symbolic, it's not about a person doing a specific thing, but about a beetle doing something that we already understand. You can apply whatever scenario you want to that. And so it allows you to apply any religious aspect that you want, but it's also something that, I think of this song whenever I'm challenged with something new, right? You have the option to keep a distance and to, look at exactly one lens of something, or you can really throw yourself into it, like the King does, which is kind of, I asked the question while you're reading, think of why his name has changed from the Beetle King to the Smoke King, but he flies straight into the fire, and by jumping into it, while he's no longer the Beetle King, he's changed entirely by what he's done now, and that's anytime. When I got this job, teaching this job, I was nervous to teach again. I had been away from it. And so when you presented that opportunity, I legitimately thought about this song, and like the Beetle King threw himself into this unknown mystery that he had. That's something that I try to do every time we're greeted by something new. It's not anything so specific that you can't apply it other places. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I being clear? Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's awesome. I love it. This is, obviously I got a tattoo of it, so it's one of my favorite songs ever. And it is because of that, that motivation that it automatically calls up within yourself. It's more than motivation, it's a, I don't know, it just resonates with me. And that where he talks about at the very end, the Beatles, the other Beatles from his kingdom say, our beloved's not dead, but his highness instead has been utterly changed into fire. And what an amazing thing for, if you think about how we want to be remembered, the legacy we would like to leave behind us, and, in our own lives as we move through this world. What an amazing legacy to be, utterly changed into that which we pursued, I should say. We sought after our whole lives, and be changed by it, but not only by it, but into that thing. And I think that's an amazing, like when you ask about, those big questions like philosophy, like, what's the purpose? What's the meaning of life? And this can be a song that kind of hints at least for this, Smoke King, this was it. Like, this was the meaning of life, is to be turned into fire, to stop asking the questions, to stop wondering, but to actually, commit to it and be changed into it. Not just changed by it. So
dive directly into it and let it completely envelop who you are. It's one, I always wanted to do this at my last school and never wanted to really get into that discussion there. But I did choose to do this here for kind of a specific reason. We're faced currently with a very unprecedented circumstance, right? Like this whole lockdown and viral thing and this new life that we all have to lead. But for our eighth graders, a lot of our eighth graders have been at the school. It's a kindergarten, eighth grade school. So a lot of our eighth graders have been at this school now for, 9 years, which is a long time to be one place.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. Our town was a little different. We had the one school, the one high school, the one middle school. And so you go to that school and you're just, ta-da, I'm here. But the uneasiness of the new experience of going to high school. And I thought this would be a perfect song, a perfect poem to look at for approaching a new experience, right? So we've got eighth graders who just shut down school in March, and when they go back, they will be in an entirely new world. They're going to be presented with a great mystery, right? And so it felt like the perfect song to do because of, like you said, you can interpret it however it applies to you. So I don't often end these or think of these, as a way to challenge you, but we're all in this position where we're moving forward with school that's going to look different, with kind of a country and a town and everything that's just going to look a little different over the next couple of months. And it's like our great mystery. It's our unknown fire. And so we're presented with the option to stay detached from it or to, talk about it from a distance or whatever, when we have the opportunity to really jump in and get involved in making it what we want it to be. And it just felt kind of like an exciting opportunity to read this. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a great kind of way to sum it up is, instead of asking the questions from a distance, what's high school going to be like, that it's not that there's not value in asking, friends or family members like, hey, what was it like to go to high school, but the issue is always that that's going to be their perspective.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be your own, because just like this, it's what you make of it. It's what you invest. And it doesn't mean always that it's going to be awesome. I mean, you could take a totally different perspective even on this song and be like, well, we know what fire is, and it's not a good thing to be turned into,
That's right. We know exactly what happened to that king when he flew into it. He got burned alive,
Yeah. So it could be, you could totally take a different view of this song and be like, if you stand outside of it and look at it as, like we are humans knowing what fire is, we're like, okay, well that beetle just died. He just flew into the fire, was consumed by it.
Right.
And so you can say, one interpretation of this song could be the absurdity of either life and or religion. Like, okay, well, you might believe that you know what fire is, or what this great mystery is, but really it's absurd, and what's going to happen is you're going to die. You're not going to turn into fire, you're going to die, and then after that there's nothing. You can totally take that view from this if that's what you want out of it.
Right.
It often makes me think of another favorite movie of mine, which is The Life of Pi, which is basically the same. This song and that whole movie are very, very similar in that you could end up in the same place, where if you're familiar with the movie, they ask about the tiger, and he says, was the tiger even real, that whole story, or is he just a figment of his imagination? And the guy says, so it's the same with God. Do you want to pretend that God's there and you have this reason for this whole story, or is God not there and life is terrible and people die? And it's up to you. It's really up to you how you choose to view it, to experience it. But the same is true. Like there's still value in the song, even if you view it that way, that this king, even though he died at the end, if that's the way you want to view it, that he still sought it for himself. He wasn't satisfied with, the answers of others or the experiences of others. He wanted to experience it for himself.
Right.
And even if that did cost him his life, at least he went out in a way that he gained understanding firsthand, and was changed by it. So I don't think it has to be that dark. I don't think it's supposed to be.
It can be if you want it to be, because like we said earlier, right? It's a poem, so it can be kind of what you want it to be, as long as you have a reason to make it that way. But the idea here, I mean, there is no mystery for this king at the end. The only people who still don't fully understand it are the rest of the Beatles that didn't fly in, and so. But
they're changed as well because
they've gained an understanding
because of their, they're beloved. Our beloved's not dead. His Highness
Right.
instead has been utterly changed into fire. They're, he's a hero now. He
Yeah.
might have been their king before, but now he's, almost a deity because he's done this thing instead of just talking about it, instead of
Right.
just, more lip service, yakety, yakety, yak. He's actually gone and done it. He left his family behind, distributed his wealth, literally gave up everything and sought this knowledge
Right.
firsthand. So that's pretty cool, and that
It
kind
is.
of inspiration, that's kind of that legacy thing I was talking about, how, that's people will always remember if we talk about these Beatles of this kingdom's fictional world, but they would never, like, that story would be passed on from generation to generation to generation because of the sacrifice, because of what he did. And so, that, I think that should, I hope, encourage us to be like, okay, well, that's the kind of legacy that I'd like to seek out is, what can I do to impact, what mysteries can I unravel, that then generations might talk about, and leave the world changed. So
I think that's a perfect way to wind this up.
Yeah.
I feel really good about what we've done here.
Okay.
I think so. Thank you, Derek, for coming around and giving your time to talk to people you've never met.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Guys, if you have any questions for me about this, or specifically if you have questions for Derek, let me know and I can reach out to Derek, because we talk pretty frequently. So I can reach out to Derek and let him know. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Derek.
You're very welcome.
We'll see all you guys later.